Great. Thanks everybody for attending my webinar. My name is Ricky Shabazz, a marine specialist, outdoor writer, weekend warrior, bass fisherman with Navionics. Appreciate you all joining me this evening. Love talking fishing. You see the name Michelle on the screen. That's not me. It's my boss at Navionics. My name is Ricky Shabazz. I'm a West Coast tournament angler and outdoor writer located in San Diego. Been living here for about a year. Local lake is Diamond Valley. Favorite lakes, California Delta, Clear Lake. I fish tournaments when I'm not working. Writer for Western Bass, One Bass, Bass West. Fortunate enough to do seminars all over the country, Bass Pro Shops, West Marine. Matter of fact, if you're in San Diego, I've got a seminar at West Marine on Friday. Then I'm going to be doing the Bloody Deck event in San Diego on Sunday. Work for Navionics. Day job is an administrator at a community college. You see some sponsors there. Very fortunate to have some great partners. This webinar is being presented by Anglers Marine. If you have questions and you would like to email me, my email address is rshabazz@navionics.com. You see the website there, teamblinkfishing.com. Again, thank you all for being on the webinar. I'm going to talk for about 20 or 30 minutes using a PowerPoint. The webinar is being recorded, will be available to watch again at navionics.com, along with all the other webinars that the great team at Navionics does. This is about education, helping you catch more fish. The topics I'm going to go over is why night fishing. I love night fishing. It's something we do a lot of in the summer out in California to beat the heat, beat the crowds. Certainly going to go over safety, mapping, baits, how we use sonar logging, and then at the end, I'm going to take questions using the chat function. Again, if you have questions that you want to ask later, I would love to answer them at rshabazz@navionics.com. Why night fishing? The lakes I fish out west are highly pressured. The fish know the boats, jet skis, water skiers, that sort of thing. We found out west that big fish feed at night during the summer, much cooler temperatures, less people. Out west, we do a lot of finesse fishing during the day, and at night we get to go bubba fishing. And by bubba fishing, I mean fish that during the day won't bite reactions and top water and big baits. For some reason at night, those same lakes that during the day we have to resort to 4 and 5 and 6 pound tests, at night we can put on the braid, put on the big baits, and go after bigger fish using reaction baits, top water, big baits. Some of the most explosive strikes I've ever received have been at night. You catch big fish, as you can see there. This is part of a 22 pound limit. Big fish is about 10. There's one in there about 7 and a 5. You can do the math. It's fun. Fishing at night is fun. Of course, we won that tournament. It's my team partner, Tony Lane. Shout out to Tony Lane if he's on the line. Before you get out there, here's some tips. Fishing at night is much different than fishing during the day. You must take your safety and the safety of others very serious. I use the Navionics weather app. This is a screenshot. I have the Navionics app on my phone. I'm going to always check the weather, check the wind, check the clouds. Plan your trip in the daytime using your GPS, using dock-to-dock auto routing. Go during the day first. When you're fishing at night, I think it's very important. I very rarely, matter of fact, I don't think I've ever gone fishing at night without taking somebody with me. You want to not only take someone with you, but you want to tell your loved ones where you're going. It's very important to take safety serious in the evening. You want to test out your equipment before you go night fishing. Your running lights, your fish finders. Do you have flashlights? Do you have anchor and ropes? You want to test out these things before you go fishing at night, because you don't want to get on the water and have something go wrong. Dress warm. Have layers, have extra clothes. I don't know about you, but I've fallen in the water more than once. I keep an extra set of clothes in my boat in a plastic baggie that I can pull out at any time. Want to have food and drinks. Please, I can't stress. Don't go out night fishing trying to run around the lake at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. In fact, our lakes in Southern California have a no wake idle in the evening. Fish local to whatever ramp you're going to launch from. You don't want to get far from the ramp. I've had the wind come up at night. You want to be able to get back to the ramp. Catch fish, have fun, monitor the moon phase. I received some questions early on for some people. The moon phase does impact the fish biting. It's interesting that when you have a full moon, the fish and you, us as humans, we will adjust to that full moon. And in fact, that full moon can be just like having sunlight out there. So the moon phase absolutely impacts the fish biting. I prefer a darker night where you don't have that moon flashing over the water. Monitor transitions. And what I mean by transitions is just like during the day, fish at night bite during periods. So you'll get that dawn and dusk bite when it's going from light to from daylight to nighttime, from nighttime to daylight. Those tend to be the better times, and it tends to be better when that moon is not shining on the water. Again, here's a shot of my Lowrance. I run Lowrance Electronics. There's a lot of great electronics out there, but the point of this picture is that you want to set GPS waypoints and you want to set your trails so you know where you're going. You can monitor the depth. That's a picture of actually my last boat. So let's talk about how I plan my trip. I either use the free web app at navionics.com. You can actually see all the maps that Navionics makes for free by going to www.navionics.com. I use my phone and tablet a lot because I don't know if you're like me, I've got a day job. And so I could be traveling. I could be going from one meeting to the next. I can use the app on my phone to begin finding places like you see here. Great nighttime spots, culverts, points, humps. And I can make GPS marks on these spots on my phone. And when I get in my boat, my Lowrance Fish Finder and my Navionics phone app sync so that the waypoints will transfer over, and or I can enter waypoints on my Lowrance Fish Finder. And so what kind of spots am I looking for? I'm looking for things like humps, rock piles, points, docks, dams, and then good old just running down the bank. Now, probably the number one question that I get when I'm doing seminars or speaking about fishing is, how do I know what a fish looks like on a fish finder? And I'm going to show you that at some point. But these are the areas that I'm pretty much going to target when I'm fishing at night. So let's take a look at what amounts to a hump. Actually, the first screenshot is a rock pile. Again, I get a lot of questions from anglers like, what does a rock pile look like? This is a rock pile on my Lowrance HDS 12. This is regular 2D sonar. This is down scan, and you see the GPS using the Navionics mapping. So I'm going to locate spots like this during the day, try to identify a fish being there. In this case, if you're asking what a fish looks like, that is what a fish looks like on this rock pile. That is a fish. It's not as easy to see on the down scan, but that is a fish right there. I get that question a lot. Here's a brush pile, and this is a great example of a brush pile, what it looks like in 2D sonar. Here's what it looks like in down scan. And again, here's that mapping. You see these figure eights. This is you're driving, trying to identify these spots during the daytime so you can drop a GPS waypoint on them and come back to them at night. And this is just an example of making a map of a lake using sonar logging. Oops, got away from me there. And so what I do is I both use my phone app, my tablet app, synced with my Lowrance, and I'm trying to identify these spots. This is San Vicente, which we mapped for Navionics. Navionics has the only map of San Vicente. It's a lake in San Diego that was closed for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years and just opened. And this is me out actually on San Vicente mapping the lake because they brought up the dam, and so now the lake is much higher. And we use this technology to get more up-to-date maps, and this will help you during the day as well as in the night. So these are all the features that I use when I'm planning, and you want to pay attention to weather. I mentioned my favorite lake is the Delta. There's tide there, wind. And so I'm looking at all of this technology before I get out there at night so that I can make sure I plan my trip effectively and I have a good time out on the water. This also connects to safety. It's always checking the weather at your location. So let's get to what we're looking for. I'm looking at high detail maps to identify depths and shading, looking at things like satellite overlay. This is my local lake at Diamond Valley. I'm looking at things like community edits where anglers like myself are marking high percentage spots. And I'm using auto routing, GPS, and waypoints to identify spots. I like to fish a lot off the bank. And so I'm looking for things like humps and islands and underwater points, and we'll show you what those things look like. It's important to find these spots during the day. So here's an example of a hump that I would use my electronics to identify during the day. And I come back to a spot like this. Even though it says 41 feet, this is Lake Paris. The lake is down. And so this 41 feet tops out about 15, 20 feet. So this is the kind of spot that I'm going to use a big worm, and I am going to get to baits and show you the kind of baits I use. I'd use a big worm. I do drop shot at night. We call it a bubba shot, where I'm using 15 or 20 pound tests with some kind of creature bait. Love throwing dark color, black, dark red crankbaits in the evening. And my #1 favorite bait for fishing at night is a wake bait. I'm going to show you a couple examples of wake baits that we use. But on a hump, these are the baits that I would use. Points, long tapering points. This is a point in Diamond Valley Lake. Again, this is a great place to use a 10-inch power worm, drop shot a creature bait, throw a Carolina rig creature bait, a big old crankbait. Can never go with wrong with a crankbait. We may not ever be able to catch a bass on a crankbait during the day at Diamond Valley. At night, they crush a crankbait. And I'll tell you what else crushes a crankbait at night is a big old catfish. I can't tell you how many catfish I catch at night on crankbaits and wake baits. And a big old catfish will blow up on a wake bait just like a bass. Docks. Love to fish docks at night. It's a great place to throw a buzz bait next to it, a wake bait, rats. I'll show you an example of a rat bait that we use. And yes, we throw black frogs at night as well. So fishing, this is a great dock. You know, I try to be, I'd throw a frog in there. I'd run some kind of wake bait or buzz bait along the outside. It becomes an ambush spot. Fishing dams. Dams normally have rocks. These are examples of dams. My local lake, Diamond Valley, there are actually 3 dams. You can see it here: East Dam, West Dam, Saddle Dam. And so love to fish dams at night. It's a great place to throw a crankbait, great place to throw a buzz bait and a wake bait. These are examples of high percentage spots to fish during the nighttime. And then there's the bank baiters. Somebody who's just going to launch the boat, put the trolling motor down, and go down the bank. My #1 bait for fishing down the bank is a good old whopper plopper. There's a picture of a whopper plopper. I like to throw a black, regular sized whopper plopper at night. But going down the bank, you can also get away with buzz baits, wake baits, and crank baits. These are some of the baits that I fish at night. Let's take a look more closely at the baits. What you have here at the top, hand-painted, custom-painted baits. You're going to notice that all the baits that I use in the nighttime are one color, and it's black. Maybe some red in there, but primarily black. Now, somebody said that they use the same colors at night that they do during the day, and if that works for you, keep doing it. My team partner and I normally win 2 or 3 night tournaments a year. We've had one of the largest weights ever weighed in a night tournament in our local lakes, and all of our baits are black. We use one color only, black. So the top, what you have top left, you should be able to see my pointer there. That is a jackal, or excuse me, an evergreen wake bait. Catch big bass on that evergreen wake bait. Like to fish that on 50 or 70 pound braided line. This is Bubba fishing. We're using heavy line. To the right of that bait, and I've lost my mouse. There we go. To the top of that bait is a Jackal Mikey. And this is actually a Jackal Mikey Senior. They make them in 3 sizes: senior, normal size, and junior. Like to throw a big treble, has 3 treble hooks. Fish blows up on it, you're going to land that fish. I can't tell you how many 9 and 10 pound bass my team partner has caught on a Jackal Mikey Senior at night. Might be getting mad at me for giving that one up. I think it's hard. I'm not sure that they even make those baits anymore. The good old buzz bait. I like to throw a buzz bait in at night. That's my thing. My team partner throws the wake baits. I throw the buzz baits. I like to throw a buzz bait with some kind of clacker on it. You can see that blade that makes a bunch of noise. It's a very loud buzz bait. I don't use a trailer hook because at night we're fishing very shallow. We're fishing around a lot of brush, and I've just found that the trailer hook gets hung up. I've never missed a bass at night blow up on the buzz bait. Never missed one. I have caught the largest fish that we've ever weighed in at night on a buzz bait. It was a little over 10 pounds. Talked about the whopper plopper. You'll see a frog there. That is a creature bait, brush hog. Also use a lot of 10 and 12-inch power worms. Fish that on 15 pound, 20 pound, or 30 pound braid. These are some of the baits we like to use. And then the big old rat. That is a rat. It's just another form of a wake bait. A lot of big bass come on rats in the night, and that's about an 8 pounder we caught it during a night tournament. That fish bit a wake bait. Crankbaits. I pretty much stick to 3 types of crankbaits. DD22 by Norman, fat-free shad, and a Strike King 10XD. You see those baits are black, has some red in them. Tend to use 12 and 15 pound tests if I'm going to use fluorocarbon, or we'll throw it on 30 pound braided line. The fish don't seem to be lime shy at night. Some of the equipment that I use, Daiwa Tatula rods and reels. I also use the Daiwa Zillion. There's a lot of great tackle on the market now. Use whatever you're comfortable with. My favorite braided line is the Daiwa Samurai. I found it to be very smooth, small diameter. Every now and then I will tie what we call a top shot using a uni to uni knot, where we'll connect fluorocarbon to braid. The moral of the story is we're using heavy equipment. This is not finesse fishing. To kind of sum it up in terms of offshore structure, using good electronics, mapping and satellite overlay, takes seed time, takes research. That's how I go fishing in the evening. Here's my contact information. It's Ricky Shabazz at navionics.com. This webinar is being taped, so it'll be available on the Navionics YouTube page. We'll probably push it out via social media and some other outlets. What I'd like to do right now is go ahead and get to some of your questions, because I'm pretty sure that you all have questions. I want to thank you all for attending the webinar. Let me see if I can get to some questions here. So on your chat button, you should be able to ask me questions. Let me go to share screen. Give me one stop. Why am I not seeing? Let me just go to stop share. Here we go. Questions? Anybody have any questions? What whopper plopper? At night, Jim, I throw the 130. I throw the bigger I want all big baits because at night I'm trying to catch 6 pound plus bass. In my local area, our night tournaments that we fish are routinely won with, I would say, 18 to 20 plus pounds for 3 fish, which means I either have to go out there and catch 3 6-pounders, or realistically, I'm going to have to catch a 10 and 2 5s. And that's what we have to do in our local night tournaments in order to win. And so I'm throwing big baits. And believe it or not, you'll catch small fish on those big baits. So I'm using a Whopper Popper by River to Sea, a 130. Jason, how do I feel about spinnerbait at night? Spinnerbait does work at night. If I'm going to use a spinnerbait, Jason, traditionally I use that during the transition. So that might be one of the first baits I throw, going from dawn to dusk. I would say I don't use a spinnerbait as much as I could. I do know anglers that like to slow roll spinnerbaits. For me, I just find that the baits that I talked about are the ones that I use, and have been very fortunate. Normally every summer we win 2 or 3 tournaments in the evening throwing the baits that we talked about. A spinnerbait absolutely does work. Any other questions? I want to make sure that I get to the questions that you all have. There's a chat function. Any questions for folks out there? Going once, going twice. Well, if there are no questions, I want to be respectful of time. You all did have my email address. It's rshabazz@navionics.com. In the event that you have questions, do you ever look? There we go. There's some questions. Good, thanks. Do I ever look for a thermocline? Jason, I don't look for a thermocline. The rule of thumb is at night, those fish go shallow, and those shallow fish are honey. And so the thermocline is not as much a factor in the evening as it is during the day. Chris, are you retrieving your crankbaits fast or slow? What gear ratio reel are you using? Great question, Chris. At night with my crankbaits, particularly if I'm fishing a dam, I'm throwing a DD22 down, I would say 15 to 17 feet. And the key is you're trying to hit the rocks. You're trying to get a reaction bite off of the rocks. Those fish are down looking for crawdads. So I am reeling as fast as I can until I get down to the proper depth where I can get that crankbait to grind into the rocks. I'm using both a 6-3-1, and yes, I will use a slower retrieve reel, which is a 5-3-1. Great question, Chris. I do use a slower reel. The slower reel allows you to cast that bait further and crank it so that you're not getting fatigued with getting that big bait down. Jed, could I elaborate a little bit more on what you look for when you're fishing a point or a hump? Really, Jed, I'm looking for fish. So I've got good electronics on my boat, so I'm going out trying to mark actual fish and or structure. Could be a rock pile, could be a brush pile, could be bait. Chances are when you go out during the day and you're using your electronics on a point or a hump and you mark bait, the bass are not too far away. So I want to know that there is something down there to keep the fish on some form of structure. And having good electronics and good mapping software will allow you to do that. It's almost cheating, this software. This mapping software is so superior to what we had 10, 15 years ago that if you can pull up and identify a point or a hump and you use your electronics to identify either bait, bass, the proper structure, you're going to catch fish. Donnie, what's the difference in full moon and dark nights when making your bait selections? Donnie, it's not necessarily bait selection. I'm going to use the same baits no matter what. What the lightness of the moon is going to do is dictate where I fish. I prefer to fish shallow dams and beat the bank when it's dark, meaning that the full moon is not showing itself. When that full moon comes out, fishing shallow is just like fishing in the day. I found that the fish don't respond to reaction baits when that full moon is hitting that water. So I may, because depending on what time you start fishing at night, that full moon may not be visible yet. That's when I'll start shallow. Once that full moon starts hitting the water, that's when I'm going to go to a point. That's when I'm going to go to a hump. And that's when I'm going to probably fish like a 10-inch power worm versus throwing reaction. Russ, I got on late and missed most of it. What are your thoughts on a black light, green light, or no lights? I prefer no lights. And I'll go as far as using black electrical tape to tape my running lights. And I'll dim my fish finders because I want to go stealth on them. And once the fish adjust to the darkness, there are shadows at night. So your boat making noise, black light, that sort of thing. What we use are flashlights, and we only turn them on if we need to tie a knot or if we need to land a fish. So I want to be as stealth as possible. I want to be as dark as possible, and you're going to increase your chances of catching a big fish. Any other questions? Those have been great questions out there, guys. Any other questions? And I appreciate you all being on the line. Like I said, this is being taped, so you will be able to watch it. Russ, so you'll be able to play it back here in a couple of days. We'll send it. You'll get an email saying when it's posted on navionics.com or YouTube. Any other questions? Let me see. Seeing no other questions, again, I want to be respectful of you all's time. We appreciate you all signing on to the webinar. For those who signed on late, it is being taped or recorded. You'll have an opportunity to watch it again at navionics.com or on our YouTube station. Appreciate you all signing on. There's a lot of great webinars on navionics.com or our YouTube channel helping you, the anglers, catch more fish. And so if you are looking to learn more about electronics, if you're looking to learn more about a certain technique, I would certainly advise you to go check out some of our recorded webinars. With that said, you all have a great evening. We're signing off here from San Diego, California. Appreciate you all signing on. Good luck to you all. If you catch a big one fishing at night, email me and let me know. Take care. Good luck to you all.